As a Bears fan, it's time to talk about one of my favorite positions at the NFL level, the linebackers. If you're a Bears fan, you haven't had a lot to look forward to in recent years, but you can always talk about the prestige and the history of the position with the organization, all the great talent, the Hall of Famers that played there, So I have a special affinity for the linebacker position, similar to on the offensive side of the ball, the running back position, because as a Bears fan, again, not a whole lot else to enjoy or look forward to over the years. So looking at this year's linebacker class, I wouldn't say it's a special group by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think it's a bad or terrible group at all. I think this is a pretty good group with some decent depth, especially through the first 4 to 5 rounds. There are plenty of guys that could potentially be 2 down, if not 3 down starters at the NFL level. And I want to keep this in mind, or make sure you're aware of this, that when I'm talking about linebackers, in this case, I'm not talking about 3-4 outside linebackers. I'm classifying them as edge rushers. Those will be covered in their own video. These are linebackers, meaning they play either outside in a 4-3 or inside in a 3-4 or a 4-3. Got it? Okay, good. Let's go ahead and get started. My number one linebacker in this draft class, especially with what happened with Jaylen Smith and his knee injury. It would have been a lot more interesting to see if he didn't have that massive knee injury, where I would view Jaylen Smith as opposed to Myles Jack. There's a very good chance that Jaylen Smith would be the number one linebacker in this draft class to me. I'm going to stand by Myles Jack. Now, I have moved him down my board ever so slightly to about the 6th range. So the 6th ranked player in the 2016 NFL draft. In part because of the knee concerns, the fact that there's some concern that someday he'll have to have microfracture surgery, that there could be other degenerative knee problems going on in the future. But with that said, though, this is still a special athletic talent. And we are talking about these fears of something that could potentially happen, that may be a problem down the road. There's not a guarantee of it even. So when I think of all of a sudden this guy going from being potentially a top 5 pick to maybe being lucky to be a top 15 pick, I think this is just madness. And NFL teams are once again proving themselves to be completely incompetent and totally fucking stupid. Stupid. Plain and simple. If you told me that you were ranking him as a top 20 or 25 talent in this draft class because you had some concerns about positional fit, you didn't see enough film on him, I don't agree with that assessment, but at least I would understand that assessment. This guy didn't even tear his ACL, and now he's getting dropped back down the board in what is not a great draft class to begin with. This is one of the 6 elite talents in this draft still, making no mistake about it. And as a result, he should still be drafted as such. And the fact that teams are asking him to sign an injury waiver, what a bunch of pussies. Oh, we want to take you, but as soon as you have any issues, we want you to cut and bail. Fuck that. Fuck any of these teams that would dare ask him to do that shit. No. Man up, grow a fucking set. Period. And take the goddamn dude and reap the rewards and the benefits. Because this guy, like I said, is a special player to me. And the teams that pass on him probably could very well end up regretting it at some point in time down the road. Now, the number 2 linebacker in this class to me, in large part because of Jaylen Smith's injury, is Darren Lee from Ohio State. But he's no slouch himself. I know a lot of people have these different thought processes about Darren Lee and thinking that, what's his positional fit? Is he physical enough? Here's what I know. The dude is incredibly athletic. He's an effective blitzer. He's solid against the run. He's an adequate but not great tackler. But here's a guy that you can deploy all over the place on coverage, got all types of versatility. You can play him inside in a 4-3. He's definitely got the sideline to sideline and goal line to line the scrimmage range to play that position. You can play him inside in a 3-4. At times, you can maybe even line him up outside in a 4-3 or a 3-4. This is a really good talent, a top 10 talent in this draft. And a guy to me that if you get him past pick number 10, you got to feel really good about the way your draft began because you've gotten a potential impact player, a Pro Bowl, or a stud to be in the middle level of that defense for 8 to 10 years to come. When I look at Jaylen Smith, it's so sad and it's so unfortunate that injury that happened. Thanks, Taylor Decker. But shit happens. And we know, I think we've known for a while now that Jaylen Smith wasn't going to play 2016 anyways. So, to me, that really shouldn't be impacting his draft stock block. But I hear now, because of the concerns about the degenerative nerve issue, or the fact that the nerve, is not regenerating right now, and how that's impacting his overall recovery, teams are taking him off the board, and teams are putting him in as a 6th or 7th round pick. Again, NFL teams are fucking stupid. This is a guy that before that injury was a top 5 talent. And one injury, be it that it was serious, and you're going to remove him off of your draft board? You're going to make him a 6th or 7th round talent? You are fucking crazy, stupid, and goddamn incompetent. You just don't do that. Ding dong, dumb dicks. If he ever fully recovers from this injury, a team is going to benefit from your stupidity from day 2 of this draft because they will have gotten themselves what feels like effectively another first-round talent. And even if he only becomes 80% or 90% of the player he once was at Notre Dame, he's still at least a moderately effective NFL starter. Which means he would at least merit 3rd to 4th or even 5th round at the worst consideration. The fact that some teams would completely remove him off the board speaks to just how stupid NFL front offices are, and further proves my point that I was talking about. Just because somebody's in a position or does a certain job doesn't mean they know what the hell they're doing, doesn't mean they know anybody or anybody else, and doesn't mean that they deserve to have that fucking job, and clearly this is the case. Look, to me, even with the injury, now it's easy maybe to say from the outside looking in, now, you're not the one that ultimately has to make the high pick. You're ultimately not the one that has to. That's right. But a lot of these teams are going to fuck up their 2nd or 3rd round picks anyways by reaching for guys, for overdrafting raw projects and raw prospects, and sometimes taking small school guys that had no fucking business being taken where the hell they were taken. If I'm going to gamble on a 2nd or 3rd round pick, I'm going to show I know what the fuck I'm doing, and I'm going to take a guy like Jaylen Smith. And in fact, if I wanted to get really frisky and I'm a team like Tennessee or Cleveland with all this additional draft pick currency, I've got the ability to take the risk, wait, and see in 2 or 3 years if this dude becomes the player that everybody anticipated him being coming out of Notre Dame. I might trade up into the last couple of picks of round 1 to get him, to get that extra guaranteed 5th year on his contract. That's what I'd be doing. And that's what good NFL front offices would be doing. Hopefully, at the end of the day, he'll get drafted by round 3. If Jaylen Smith lasts till day 3 of the draft, all 32 teams are fucking stupid. Plain and simple. No other excuse other than that. They are just stupid. Their priorities are wrong, and they just don't get it. And they lack the testicular fortitude to do the right thing, and that is to take the talented player with the injury risk. Flat out. Now, there are a couple of 2nd-round inside linebackers to me in this draft. Reggie Ragland from Alabama. Some people probably have rated a little higher. I think he's rated about where he should be here. I like some of his versatility. I like the fact that he brings you a little pop as a blitzer. You do have some versatility. But I do think ultimately his best schematic fit is a 3-4. I think if you're asking him to play in the middle in a 4-3, that's probably taking him a little bit out of his comfort zone. If you're asking him to play strong side in a 4-3, then why are you really taking him in a 2nd-round talent? Because he's not that great of a pass rusher. Still a solid football player, a guy I'd like inside as a thumper in a 3-4 defense, but a guy that I do think can play some in 3-down situations. A guy that I really, really like, who came off of an ACL injury to play in 2015, I thought played pretty well, was Antonio Morrison from Florida. There's a lot of talk and a lot of thought about him being a 2-down thumper and a guy that you have to pull out in 3rd down and passing situations. I don't necessarily see it like that. I see a guy that is a fucking bowling ball of steak knives, similar to how Carl Joseph is a fucking bowling ball of machetes. I love the anger and the attitude this guy plays with. I love the toughness that he displayed coming back so soon from his knee injury, a la an Adrian Peterson type of recovery. The fact that he showed that type of will to compete is incredibly impressive to me. The type of will to compete that you would like out of a middle linebacker who, in theory, is always supposed to be the heart and soul, the leader, the quarterback of your defense. This is a guy, solid tackler, really good instincts, incredibly physical, packs a wallop. I love this kid. And I see all these different draft sites have him rated as a 6th or 7th round pick, and it breaks my heart because he should, in my opinion, be rated a lot higher. As should Tyler Matakevich from Temple. Maybe it's a soft spot for the white linebacker in me. I don't fucking know. But I think the kid can play. I think he gets slept on way too much. Just because he can't run a 4.6 40 doesn't mean that the kid can't play linebacker at the NFL level. I do think he would be better suited to play inside in a 3-4 than as opposed to a 4-3, yes. But I think he's the type of guy you take in the 3rd round or in the 4th round of the draft, and he ends up being a productive, solid NFL starter for you. Cravens from USC, I think, is a good football player. He's not a great athlete. I think there will be some concerns about where he fits at the NFL level. But I think because of his football smarts and his instincts, here's a guy that could probably play weak side linebacker and be a solid one in a 4-3. Another middle linebacker that doesn't get talked about enough, I don't think, is B.J. Goodson from Clemson on a defense with Shaq Lawson, Kevin Dodd, and Mackenzie Alexander and Jaylon getting a lot of the lion's share of attention. B.J. Goodson made some solid plays, and he's got size, he's got quickness, some speed, some athleticism, some instincts. He's the type of guy that a team's probably going to gamble on around round 3, if not the tail end portion of round 2, I would think at this point, and be looking at him as a guy that could potentially start and be one of those nice value picks in the middle of the draft, similar to like a Joshua Perry from Ohio State. Another just solid football player. Not great in any one area, but can do a lot of things at an adequate level. He'd be at least an adequate starter at the NFL level. One linebacker I do want to point out really quickly before I stop this video. We're talking about Deion Jones from LSU. I see Mike Mayock and many others are very high in him, talk about his athleticism and all of this. And I see an undersized guy at 225 pounds who doesn't play with an incredible level of strength or physicality, doesn't play bigger than his size, sometimes, frankly, play smaller than his size, which is really frightening to me, especially because he doesn't play nearly as fast on film as he may have tested in the 40 at the goddamn combine, in large part because I think his instincts are severely lacking. Now, looking at him, I think he's better a fit as a 4-3 outside linebacker, maybe somewhat similar in the mold to a Telvin Smith with the Jacksonville Jaguars, like when he came out of Florida State. But I think the 2nd-round pick or even 3rd-round pick talk on this kid is crazy. I mean, it's okay if you take him in the middle to late portion of round 3. It's not that big of a reach to me, but it's still a bit of a reach. I think he is far from a sure thing. Maybe you take him in the 4th round and he proves himself to be somewhat like a Quan Alexander. That would be a good, appropriate comparison to me. But when I look at him, I just think he's been one that's been a little bit overrated throughout the course of the draft process, but it is what it is. Like I said, solid draft of linebackers, not great or special, but not as bad as some of the previous years. You can find some help in this class, but I hope above all else, whether it's my Bears or it's another team, I hope somebody steps up to the plate, nuts up, mans up, and shows the brain power and the testicular fortitude to take Jaylen Smith somewhere on day 2 because the kid deserves it and because he is one of the best players in this draft class before the injury. He's still, with the injury concerns, one of the top 100 players in this draft, even with that injury. So take the fucking kid! 6th, 7th round pick, remove him off the board. I wish my team fucking would. How stupid.